As the cosmos quakes from the presence of both beings, Thanos, glowing with the raw essence of the heart of the universe, stands at the edge of infinity. True form. Darkseid, an embodiment of anti-life, rises from the source realm. Reality bends, and gods flee. But in the end, one becomes all. Thanos absorbs Darkseid's essence into the heart, ending the clash before it even begins. The stars screamed. No one heard it, of course, except the beings who stood beyond sound, beyond time, beyond what mortals would dare call existence. Something ancient and terrible was stirring between realms. A ripple not in space-time, but in the fabric of everything. A warning whispered into the soul of creation. Across the Marvel Omniverse, a shadow once thought erased began to flicker into being. Entire timelines halted mid-breath. Concepts such as life, death, memory, and meaning blinked in confusion, unsure if they still existed. And at the center of it stood a lone figure, tall, grim, contemplative. Thanos. But not the mad titan of old. This was Thanos infused with the heart of the universe, a being who had once destroyed everything, even the cosmic abstracts, and then brought it all back with a single thought. He was one with the Omniverse, but his presence now was like a healed scar, aching under phantom pain. He stared outward, his gaze stretching beyond the bounds of Marvel, past the fulcrum of fiction, into something else entirely. Something stirs, a presence that does not belong, not in my domain, not in any. And indeed, something stirred, in a place outside of what could be called reality, within the source realm that lies behind the DC multiverse. It was there that true form, Darkseid, had begun to awaken, not the broken avatars who had battled Superman and been bested by mortals. This was the real Darkseid, the one who existed before gods had names, who had once whispered the anti-life equation into the marrow of time. Darkseid had not merely conquered worlds, he had enslaved meanings, corrupted destiny, and bled his presence into everything that could be. But now his eyes opened, not to dominate the DC multiverse again, but because he felt a disturbance. Something had threatened the hierarchy of realities, touched boundaries no being ever should. A force had risen to omnipotence, and worse, it had done so outside of Darkseid's grasp. Thanos, at the boundary of everything, where the source wall bends into the edge of the Marvel Omniverse, two realms that were never meant to touch began to crack. A rift opened, not of science, not of magic, but of willpower. From the Marvel side came Thanos, walking through nothingness as though it were a marble hallway. From the DC side, Darkseid's true form descended like a falling truth, huge, abstract, beyond visual comprehension. He wore no armor, no facade. His form was a concept, felt rather than seen. Galaxies dimmed in the shape of his silhouette. So, rumbled Darkseid's voice, more like a verdict than a sound, the thief of infinity approaches. Not a thief, Thanos replied calmly. A savior, a destroyer, a god who repented and now returns because something dares to intrude. Darkseid's presence bent reality around him. Every word he uttered was embedded with the anti-life equation, promising despair, submission, oblivion. All that you are is noise. All that you seek is illusion. I am the end of all seeking. And yet here you are, speaking, Thanos replied, which means you are threatened. For a moment, the two beings simply stood, and the multiverses across fiction froze. The living tribunal blinked out of curiosity. The spectre turned his gaze to the breach. Even the presence and one above all, silent creators of their respective houses, paused their hands. Because this was a moment never fated to occur. The conflict wasn't just one of power, but of ideology. Darkseid was the embodiment of control. The loss of self, the end of free will, the dominance of the anti-life equation. Thanos, armed with the heart of the universe, represented total comprehension, universal harmony through destruction and restoration. Two opposing truths, equally unstoppable. Darkseid moved first. He didn't raise a hand. Instead, he invoked a command, and a portion of the anti-life equation stretched forth like a burning chain, lashing out to rewrite Thanos' very essence. "Be still, Titan," Darkseid intoned. "Let thy will become mine." But Thanos only blinked, and the chain dissolved. "I wield the heart, god of the lie. Equations bow before the truth I have become." And with that, Thanos raised his hand, not to strike, but to show Darkseid his own nature. A mirror of cosmic proportion formed. In it, Darkseid saw not a god, but a wound upon existence. A tyrant born from fear, desperate to force obedience because he feared the void. Darkseid snarled, and for the first time in eternity took a step back. "You dare show me weakness? I show you yourself," Thanos replied. "And now I know you are not eternal, you are not truth, you are a scream that never ends." In the Marvel multiverse, celestial beings trembled. The living tribunal held its breath. In the DC multiverse, New Genesis closed its gates, and even the Monitor realms dimmed. A convergence like this would not remain passive. Fiction itself was bending. Characters began forgetting who they were. Timelines overlapped. Odin dreamed of Krypton. Zatanna spoke in Kree. Flash ran into Speed Force corridors shaped like the negative zone. All signs of a cosmic merger that was never meant to be. And at its center stood two beings, not fighting, not yet, but simply speaking, and already reshaping eternity. Darkseid leaned forward and for the first time showed curiosity. "What is it you seek, Thanos? There is no one left to impress." "I do not seek conquest," Thanos replied. "I seek balance, and you are the imbalance. That must be erased." Darkseid's eyes flared with Omega, not beams but principles, the unmaking of causality. "Then come, child of nothing, let us decide what remains." And then the battle began. Time stopped. Creation gasped. The first blow was never thrown. It was willed. Darkseid's Omega principles surged forth, not as a beam, but as a law. It bent around the very idea of Thanos, not seeking his death, but his erasure from conceptual memory. Galaxies screamed as the attack passed through them. Planets turned inside out, forgotten by their own stars. Time no longer knew how to flow. But Thanos did not move. The Omega Surge crashed against him and broke like a tide on obsidian. "You would unmake me, Lord of Anti-Life?" Thanos whispered, golden light bleeding from his eyes. "Then allow me to show you what it means to be one with all that is." The heart of the universe ignited in his chest, not as a weapon, but as an awareness. Every fiber of creation pulsed within him. He reached out, not physically, but spiritually, and for a second, touched Darkseid's true form. And Darkseid bled, not red, but darkness, thick like tar, as portions of his infinite self were dragged from the Source realm into a known reality where Thanos could strike. Enraged, Darkseid expanded. The very laws of existence warped. The sky turned into burning parchment, written over by equations that cursed choice. The anti-life equation became visible, words stretching across stars. There is no love, there is no purpose, there is only Darkseid. Thanos was buried. In anti-life, his body swallowed by a collapsing field of despair. Heroes and villains across realities fell to their knees. Thor wept for no reason. Wonder Woman dropped her sword. The Phoenix Force turned to ash. All felt an ancient, inevitable defeat in their bones. But inside the crushing field of despair, Thanos smiled. You think despair is your weapon? I was born in nihilism, forged in futility. But I rose, Darkseid. I found meaning where there was none. He exploded outward. The heart pulsed once, and all across existence the anti-life equation began to flicker. One above all turned his gaze toward the clash. The presence narrowed his eyes. The clash was now more than power. It was a philosophical war. Submission versus transcendence. The two cosmic titans charged. No fists, no blasts, just intention colliding with intention. Darkseid became entropy incarnate, a black hole of willpower, drawing all logic and resistance into himself. Thanos, glowing with the golden essence of the heart, became the voice of creation, reshaping matter, hope, and purpose with every step. They clashed, and in that moment, realities shattered like glass. DC Earth and Marvel Earth merged for one breathless second. Superman looked into Captain America's eyes and forgot which universe he belonged to. The Speed Force danced with the power cosmic. Dr. Fate saw a future that didn't exist. In the rubble of that merged moment, Thanos landed hard, wounded. Darkseid towered above him, half his form a shifting storm of Omega energy. Even now, Darkseid growled, you bleed, you falter, I am eternal. Thanos wiped blood from his mouth. No, you are static, and I am growth. Then he stood, taller, stronger. The heart of the universe responded, not with more power, but with clarity. Thanos no longer struck as a being, he struck as a principle. This ends now. He raised his hand and froze time, not locally, but multiversally. Darkseid tried to move, but he was caught, not in a trap, but in a truth, that even gods must bow to the heart of all things. Thanos reached inside the very structure of Darkseid's essence, deep into the DNA of the anti-life equation itself, and began to rewrite it. There is no fear. There is no control. There is only choice. The words shimmered, and suddenly Darkseid screamed, not a The very equation he embodied was being undone. The anti-life equation began to collapse, cracking like glass under divine pressure. Darkseid lunged, won. Last strike, his true form now a cosmic hurricane of wrath. But Thanos met him, and with both hands pushed the heart into Darkseid's core, and whispered, rest. There was silence. All of existence, both Marvel and DC, both gods and men, paused. Darkseid was gone. Not dead, not erased, but reabsorbed into the fundamental balance of existence, no longer a threat, no longer a wound. And Thanos? He stood alone in the ruins of fiction's boundaries, the heart still glowing within him, but now calm, dim, no longer flaring. It is done, he whispered, and now, so am I. He closed his eyes and released the heart. It faded into the ether, returning to the mystery it came from. Thanos collapsed to one knee, not in weakness, but in peace. The battle was won. Creation breathed.